Hey guys, I'm James Rowbottom, and today I wanted to talk to you about the process of pet adoption in its correlation with the Animal Welfare Act. The Animal Welfare Act is really the only law that is in place to help protect animals in any big capacity, but it doesn't necessarily protect them from ending up in shelters and being euthanized later on. So, what I want to talk to you about today is the fact that we need another law that helps protect animals from ending up in shelters because their owners abandon them or for whatever reason. So that's what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today. So the Animal Welfare Act, like I said, it's really the only law that's in place federally. And it doesn't necessarily cover a broad scope of things for animal rights. And pet adoption is one of the most it's really frequent. A lot of households own pets such as dogs and cats. However, a lot of these animals end up in shelters, and unfortunately a lot of them are ending up euthanized after spending a bunch of time in shelters because no one adopted them. So this is a big problem. And I want a new federal law that kind of helps screen the adoption process a little further and helps animals find better homes early on in their lives, starting from babies. So the status quo right now is there's a popular phrase out there amongst pet adoption that's called adopt, don't shop. And what this is people are encouraging the adoption of animals from shelters and discouraging buying animals from breeders entirely. And while I think adopting animals from shelters is very noble and should not be discouraged in and of itself, I think that adopt, don't shop is not the proper way of trying to solve the problem of overpopulation of shelters. I don't think it's very useful. I don't think it's effective, and it discourages breeding, and we'll get to why that would be a problem here in a second. So some of the top reasons that animals end up in shelters, families move and they feel like their pet is just an added weight that they don't need. Their cost of maintenance is too high, and they already have too many other animals. And basically all this adds up to is just sheer human stupidity, in my opinion. And they just need to do more research. And I think some of this research might have to be forced upon. So those are some of the things to think about when you're adopting a pet, whether it's from a shelter or from a breeder. So that's a bit about the status quo of what's happening, So according to the ASPCA, there are about 670,000 dogs and 860,000 cats that are euthanized each year, according to a report from 2017. And that's a rough estimate. The Animal Welfare Act does nothing to help protect these animals in the shelters and keep them from being euthanized. The Animal Welfare Act does nothing. So that's a big problem amongst pet adoptions. So what can be done to help these animals? Well, some solutions. I think we should, one, encourage better breeding, more effective breeding. And what I mean by this is where the law that I would want to happen comes in, okay? We make breeders take classes, either online or in person, either online or in person, about the animals that they're breeding and how to breed. Because a lot of breeders, they just get a couple animals together and they have babies and they do minimal amount of research and do the extremely bare minimum, and then looking to make thousands of dollars off of puppies or kittens. So I think breeders need to be more educated, and I think that might need to be forced upon them. Um, I think breeders should follow up on their animals after they've been adopted. Check up on the animal, call the family, see how the animal is doing, see how they like the animal. I know some breeders do this, and I think it's very good that they care about their animals even after they've parted ways with them. So um, they need to check up on their animals. Plus, it holds the breeder more accountable for the job that he's doing, and it holds the client, the family who ended up adopting the animal, holds them accountable too, knowing that someone's checking up on them about their animal. Because the animal is like a member of your family, even for breeders. So it's like breeders are growing up their babies when they leave. So checking up on their animals, I think, would be a good strategy. It can establish trust between the client and the breeder as well. So there's that too. They can form the connection, and again, that connection will in and of itself hold each other more accountable for that dog. I also think that breeders need a more effective screening process, or at least an established screening process federally. Questions to ask, observations to make, that kind of stuff about the client to see if that family would really be a good fit for their dog or cat or animal, or if the animal would be a good fit for their family. So I think a more effective screening process would definitely help that as well. So like I said, the Animal Welfare Act does nothing to help keep these animals out of shelters, and a ton of animals are being euthanized all the time, and it's a big problem. Adopting animals from shelters is great, and I think it's very noble that you would be willing to take on an animal who's been through trauma, But I don't think discouraging breeding is a good solution at all. I think we need to encourage better breeding, and we need a more effective screening process. That way, we'll have a better chance of the animal ending up with a good family and then that staying with that family. So I think we need a new federal law that helps the adoption process early on. And I think that will keep animals out of shelters. Maybe not, zero, but it'll help limit the number of animals in shelters significantly. So if you adopt an animal either from a shelter or from a breeder, please love your animal and treat it like a member of your family. And, just do your research before you go into that kind of a purchase. And I think this will help keep animals out of shelters. So encourage better breeding. And I think we need a new federal law that helps the breeding process. So thank you very much.